So tonight, this is one I did show a lot of you earlier. Looks like a little coat, doesn't it? So very, very easy. But in there, and I haven't got anything in there at the minute, but in there you can put, there's some little channels, little pockets, little holders for putting whatever you would like to put in there. I can't think I haven't, oh, you wouldn't be able to see that. I've got a foot here. You could put your machine feet in there. You could put whatever you like. Okay, let's take that. I might need it. So this was one I did in the countryside fabrics. And when you zip up, I know what I haven't got, but perhaps it's there. When you zip that up, you have a nice little pouch that looks like a fish. So it will stand up like that. And that is there. And this is another one that I did. Okay. So nice little tap. I use ribbon here. Just thought, where is my ribbon? Is that? Oh, it's still there. That's good. So when you unzip this, I have got lots of little tools sitting in there, in those little channels. And do you know what? It really is nice and easy. But the thing that's different about this, it's not a whole zip here. It is half a zip. Okay, let's just pull that up. You can fold this bit back if you want to. And you can also lay it on its side like that with everything. So you can just pop it in there. I've got a reel of thread in there as well. So that's what I'm going to show you how to make. Right, let us go down onto the machine. There we go. I think we'll go a little bit lower. There we are. So what do we need? So I have made those ones out of a 9-inch square. But I was thinking, all of you have all of your layer cakes. There would be no reason on this earth why you shouldn't use a layer cake and use 10-inch squares. Great for makeup brushes, Patricia. Absolutely. You haven't requested to join the mystery quilt yet, have you, Patricia? I put the link there, and I don't think, or perhaps I've missed it, and you are in there already. So anyhow, what we have here one piece. This is my outer fabric. That is going to be my lining fabric. Then another 9-inch square, which I have folded in half, wrong sides together, so it's half the depth. That is going to be my channel for my pockets. And then you'll need, which I've already done, some fusible fleece fused onto the back of the outer fabric. You will need a little bit of fabric for binding. I think that, no, there's 3 seams, binding the seams. And also I use ribbon this time for doing the little tab. So I think we could put that on there as I've got a cream zip. So then we need a zip. I've used continuous zip, okay, because we need a fair length. For the 9-inch, I think I've got about 26 inches, or I've got more than enough. But as you see, it's open both ends, so we will have a zip pull, because what we need to do with this is pull it apart, because we are only going to use one side of the zip. So that's the one side we're going to use. So, right, so the first thing we're going to do, I'm going to set that aside for the moment, and I am going to take, we'll get the lining piece sorted out first. So I've got my lining fabric right side up, and I'm going to place the folded piece with the raw edge at the bottom and the folded edge at the top there. I am going to grab my, there it is. I'm grabbing my friction pen as I walk away, and I'm just going to draw a few lines wherever you like, this is how I'm going to create. I'm going to do that at 2, and 2, and I might do and 2.5. Okay, like that. So I've got those lines drawn on there, which I'm now just going to stitch down just to hold the layers together to form my channels. So let's see, we'll have the just a normal length stitch. We're on free motion still. Oh, right, okay. That's it. I've got my feed dogs down. So that's it. They've come back up now. There we are. Been doing a little bit of free motion. Hence the feed dogs are down. Okay, so we'll stitch down there. Except we won't because it hasn't caught the bobbin thread. Okay, that was trapped in there. I just looked beforehand to make sure I got enough bobbin thread. There we are. And there's plenty on there, so, but I hadn't popped it back properly. Okay, let's just make sure that is lined up. I've got my bottom lined up as well. Lovely. So, take 2, reverse, and stitch down to the bottom. Then we'll move on to the next one. We could come down a little bit closer, couldn't we? There we are. Right, reversing at the top as I'm started from that folded edge. And straight to the bottom there. And then similarly just here, just reverse because there'll be a little bit of stress against that because it's going around, or rather things can be pushed in and out. So let's just clip those threads away and then we are all set to go. Now, what I also would do here, I would stitch round the edge, just down here and down here, purely because we need those layers to hold together. So I've done that about, what is it, about 1/8 of an inch. Oh, that's not very lined up, is it? Never mind. Okay. So we want that to be in the seam allowance, which will be, I'm sure, absolutely fine. Whoops, there we go. So I've got those sides as well because they could creep in a little bit and then your pockets won't be formed correctly. So it's as easy as that for making our pockets. So with our outer fabric, with the wadding, the fusible fleece on the back, what we need to do is fold this in half, like so, and at the raw edges, we can either draw around something, or you can, let's see, let's just draw a curve. I don't think I've got anything. Oh, yes, I have. Let's see, I've got the ribbon. Let's take the ribbon and let's draw a curve on this side. So I have just, there we are. I've just drawn around there. So I've got a curve because I need to curve the top. Okay, so this is on my my open edge there. And all I'm going to do, I'm cutting through both layers so that it is symmetrical. There we go. So now I have a curved piece. This is the top. This is the bottom. Okay, now we need to take our zip and we'll start from the bottom, so from the straight edge, and you'll have to make sure that your zip is right side, the zipper, where the zipper pull will go down, so the zip coil down. And I know I'm going to put a pin in here. And what I just do before I do any further is just make sure my zip is long enough to go all the way around, which it is. Okay, so you can, if you want to, pin the whole way around. But do you know what? I like to do as I'm going. I do it as I'm going along. Because when we get to these curves, what we're going to do is we're going to clip into this. I could do this already because I know the curve's going to be here. So I'm just clipping into the zip tape and it means it will go around the curve. So it's about every 1/4 to 1/2 inch, and it's only up to about just under halfway. And that means you're not going to see the clip that I've just made. So can you see there? I've clipped into there. So you can either put your zipper foot on, or this is about 1/4 inch wide, so it fits quite nicely. And I'm making sure my zip tape lines up with the edge of the outer fabric with the wadding, the fusible fleece attached. Okay, so let's go around. So whilst we're on the straight, absolutely fine. When we come to a curve, we're just going to bend that around. So can you see how that is splaying a little bit? So we want it to, and this is where I'd probably use the seam ripper, just to hold that out to the edges, because you see how it comes back in again. And there we go. So, oh yes, I've clipped to about here. So let's just keep stitching around there, pulling that zip tape edge out to the edge. And I can see now I'm on a straight, and I'm coming up to another curve. So we'll go to there, and then we'll just clip into, there's 1, 2, 3. You need to do a fair, it wouldn't matter if you went the whole way round, to be honest, but you don't need to. So just make sure you've got a long enough distance to go round the curve. So it's just starting to bend a little bit there. So just use your seam ripper or something pointed just to hold that down, and hold the edge, the clipped bit of that tape against the edge of your outer fabric. Okay, it's a little bit like putting piping, bias binding on, that sort of thing. But just keep that going. We're on the straight now, and we can go all the way down to that end. Okay, so we've got that. Doesn't matter that it's too long at each end. So having put that one zip on, it's easier to do it one side at a time. Just push that down. But this is when we take in, and you know what Trisha's forgot to do? I've forgotten to trim this to the same shape. So let's just pop this on here, like so. And what we can do, let me see if that's it, let me pull that down just a little bit. I'm lining those edges up. I should have actually used this as a template on my lining. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to draw around there like that. So I've got my curve there, and I am now going to fold it in half so that I can line up those edges like that, lined up at the top, because obviously we want this to be the same size. I'm going to put a pin in there. I want it to be the same size, or 2, as my outer. So as long as I've lined those up, and then I'm going to trim this through both layers so that it matches, as I say, so that it lines up with my outer fabric with the fusible fleece on. There we go. Right, all done. I think I got too fussed with the brick wall and the stitching that I've been asked to do. So with this one, I would, in fact, just align those edges, and let's put a pin or 2 in here, because I want to make sure that my curves fit. Okay, so I'm going to put a pin around that curve and make sure, oh yes, that's fitting quite nicely too. So, okay, I've only put a few in, but it's just to make sure that fits really nicely. Okay, so all we're going to do now, and you could do it from the other side actually, which I will. So by doing it this side, you've got your stitch line, and just make sure that the fabric lines up, but line that up, and then we can follow that stitch line so that you know the stitching is going to be in exactly the same place as your first row of stitching, popping the zip in. So I know you won't be able to see that, the stitching, but I can, and I'm just making sure that those curved edges line up, and then also this top edge. So just carry on round, and I'm stitching on that previous line. Line those edges too. Okay, that went in a little bit there. There we are. So we've got that curve ready there. And around we go. And we're still lining up, which is exactly what we wanted. I'll take that out now. And you really want the bottom edge to line up as well. So that looks fine to me. Okay. So now we have all of that stitched. So I'm going to turn that to the right side now. Okay. And there we have our zip in there, inside, attached to lining and outer. And what I would do here is give it a press. I'm just wondering if, there we are, or perhaps we could just pull that apart so that the zip comes well and truly away from our fabric. And what you'll find is the zip does pull at those curves, but it's not a problem. So I'm just going to see if I can bring in the iron. And with the iron, I want the steam on because we want to give it a good steam to set that seam and around those curves to pull them out really nicely. Whoops, okay. So the iron is on. The steam is on. Let's put the ironing board. There we go. So let's get our piece of fabric here. And I might even, so I'm popping that there. I might even put a pin in at the bottom edge, just to hold the lining in place with that as well. And then I can push away. That's it, that lines up really nicely. So now I'm going to press, especially around these edges, which is where we are going to, top stitch in a second. So just see if you can pull the zip away. Let's go in here. There we go. And then let's go to the other side and just make sure that is nicely away from the edges. Oh, there's my pockets. So we can just press in there, ready for doing our top stitching. There we go. Okay. There we are. So it's always good to do a little bit of pressing where you can. And I'm now going to, I should do this from the right side, but I'm going to top stitch all the way around the edge there. So let's go back to the machine and starting at the bottom, we'll do some top stitching around this edge. So I'm going to pull away, and especially when we come around here, I'm just pulling up the zip because that does curve just a little bit. So just pull that up because that is then taking away the lining from the inside edge of the zip. And we'll just go all the way around here. I can feel that's taken away on the straight edge. There we go, around here and around there. So I'm just using the inside edge of my foot just to guide as to where we're doing the top stitching. And that's all coming out really, really nicely. Okay, so top stitching done. So what we need to do now, let's just have a look here. So in actual fact, what I am going to do, just as a help, I'm going to stitch across the bottom here, just to hold the lining together. And I have got a PDF and I haven't put it in the group yet. I was thinking too much about pumpkins. Okay, so I've just sewn just along there so that it holds that all together. Now, the next thing we need to do is we're going to trim that away. The next thing we're going to do is actually, there's a bit of tape on there, that's it. We're going to put the zip pull on. So if we line up, can you see there? I'm lining up that bottom edge because that's where I want to put the zip on there. What I'm going to do first of all, though, is I'm going to find the halfway point here. So if I just fold that so the zip lines up, and then I'll put cut a little bit there so that I can tell that is where the center of the base is. So as I say, I'm now going to, it doesn't matter at the minute, I'm just going to put the zip on, but I'm just lining those two up there. And what I'm going to do is just pop a pin, because it doesn't hold, no, I'm not, I'm going to use a couple of clips. Here we are, because I want this to just stay held together while I put my zipper pull on. Okay, so that's about lined up. Now, I don't need that length of zip, but I do need a bit. Okay, so I've got a little bit there, and I hope this is going to go well. So putting the zipper pull on, you always want the curved part. You can see how that's facing up. There's the straight bit at the bottom there. There's the curved head, like the arrowhead. And I hold on to the pull, and then I'm going to put one side on. So let's just put one side will go on, so the left. You might like to put the right, but there's the left. And I only usually put it on just because the other side doesn't slip on as easily as the first side. So let's just try and get that just about. It should do one little click. Actually, it doesn't like that one being on. I like to have a little bit of space to be able to do this. So we want that side to just go, it just clicked a little bit. And then to be able to pop it down onto the table. And I put my fingers either side, holding the tape down. And I'm going to pull this and wiggle. Oh, and it worked. So if you wiggle, it then goes on. There we go. So that's okay for me. That's just about right, being level at the bottom. So having got that zipped up, what we want to do now, and it will go the whole way to the top, but that's just a single side, you see? Just a single side. Okay, so now we're going to turn it to the wrong side. So let's turn it, let's just push it through here, because we're going to work from the back. Pull, pull, pull. And that little notch that we did in the bottom, that is where we're going to line up the zip with that bit just there. But I am going to take a little bit of ribbon. Okay, let's do about so much. That's about, say, 4 inches. Fold it in half. And I am just going to just stitch across that so it holds together. Let's just stitch across there. That's it. And that is going to slot in here. And I'm going to put that in there so that let's put a pin just there to hold it. Or no, what I could do, actually, I'm going to stitch it. So you could put a pin to hold it and do the rest. Or what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to stitch across there just to hold that in place. Then I've got no pins or anything else. And then that zip coil needs to go right on the middle of there. And then we can pop our clips on each side. Okay, and now I'm going to stitch across. You're probably very familiar with this bit. I'm just going to stitch across here. I might take a little bit wider than a 1/4 inch seam. So there's no need to reverse there because we are going to be cutting that away. Okay, so I've stitched across. The next thing we need to do is we're going to cut out little corners here. So what did I do with my ruler? I've only just used it, but I'll use this little one here. Right, so we need to cut out corners, and I'm doing 3/4 inch. If you do it any bigger for this size, you could go to 1 inch if you were using, and I'm going from this bit here. There's my stitching. So I'm going to measure from here. If you're using 10-inch squares, you could get away with 1 inch being cut out here. Now this, yeah, that's it. So that's 3/4. Okay. So I cut that, or I've measured that, and then 3/4 here, from the fold, but to this stitch line here. So 3/4, 1, 2, 3. There is my 3/4. It looks strange because of this stitch line, but that's a channel. Okay, so let's cut that there. So I've marked those lines here, and I'm just going to trim that away. Let's cut that out like so, and right to the end there. Cut this little bit off too, and this bit too. There we go. Okay, so this bit we can now trim off here, and we can cut that down to less than 1/4 inch. There we are. Make that nice and narrow, because we do now need to bind this. Now, I saw a little trick the other day, and I won't do this with the other pieces because it is a bit, so it's only when you've got a narrow seam, but I'm going to use ribbon to bind this off, and it's really quite neat. So if you fold, this is 1/2 inch ribbon, and I would say 3/4 inch would be much, much better. But as it's only 3/4 inch, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to start stitching this together along the fold, along those open edges. So let's just start stitching. Okay, so that's already folded. So I've now got, a little bit like bias binding, a little channel there to pop this into, and flatten that down onto the needle bed. Pull your ribbon over, and as I say, 3/4 inch would be far, far better. But I'm now going to stitch across there, and I'm making sure that I can see top and bottom, and I'm just stitching across. We'll see if this works. That's it. I'm just watching across there. And I'm not going right on the edge. I'm going towards the middle, and that way I can now chop that off, and look, I've got nice neat on both sides. Now, I only use ribbon there because these edges are going to be neatened as well. So that is a nice, easy way for using ribbon. As I say, 3/4 inch or even 1 inch would be much better, and that would work for this as well. But because when I make these corners, right, I'm putting my finger in there, flattening that down, and pulling that out, making sure that doesn't go in. That's it. So that is really quite nice. I'm going to put the clip on there. That is going to be very thick. It will take up too much of my ribbon. So I shall be using just some strips of binding, 1 1/4 inches wide to do those. So that fits really nicely. I'm going to stitch across this one. Okay. So And I'll reverse as well because we don't want that to open up. And then similarly on this other side where I have got the clip on. So reverse there and straight down there. And we can just trim that off. So that's, it's not exceedingly wide, but sometimes if you do a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, which I usually do, that would work with the ribbon, but with the ribbon, I would need to fold it in. So what I'm going to use instead is a little bit of calico, and here is my calico. So I'm going to have this about 1 1/4, and I think one strip of this is going to be absolutely fine. Doesn't that noise sound wonderful? Okay, so yes, I think if I fold that there, that's going to be plenty. So I want one piece for each side. And what I'm going to do is I am going to pop this. I'm going to pop the seam. You can do it whichever way you like. We'll put it that way, I think. And then if you fold that back, perhaps it's a little bit long. There we are. Fold that back there. And then I think we'll do the same on this other side, but I'm going to take a little bit of that off and fold that back to just past the end there. And then we can do a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance here. I will reverse there, get my fingers out of the way. Okay, so I've stitched that one. We'll stitch the other side as well. There we go. So let's pop this one on here. Trim a little bit off because it was quite long. And as I say, fold that piece back like that. And then at the other side also. There we are. I'm going to flatten that down just there out of the way. Line it up with the edge of our corner. And reverse a little bit there. Line those edges up. Let's make sure that's going down. We don't want it to be sticking out the top. Okay. And then if we flip it this way, we can flip that out, and you can see, and I'm going to now turn that back and just give it a little nail press and fold that over the seam. So I've got that nicely folded there, and I can then stitch across here. So very slowly because it has got thicker. And if you go very quickly at it, you can easily break a needle. So you could use a humper jumper if you find it difficult getting up there. But that's given me a nice neat seam there. Take that little bit off. And then we'll do exactly the same on this side here. So flip it that way so that our binding comes out. Turn it over. Give that a little finger press and then fold it over our edge. And it should just fold that, cover that row of stitching. See if we can tuck that little bit in. Okay. And we'll do exactly the same again, nice and slowly. It's that very first hit into the fabric that sometimes it doesn't like it. Okay. So clip that bit off. Clip underneath, but you've got nice neat bound edges there. And then all we're going to do is open this zip, and we can turn that through to the right side, poke those corners out, and those bound corners actually help that to give it its shape, nice and structured, you can see. And there is your little pouch. Just throw your things in if you want to and zip it up, or you can have it standing up there with your bits and pieces in, wrong way up, but they will all fit into the holder. Or you can turn its collar down. Well, let's put that the other way up. There we are. Put some things in the bottom and that will stand up really, really nicely. So done as easily as that. That was quite straightforward, wasn't it? So what did we think? I didn't go and get my pad. Hopefully the comments will start coming up if I didn't. No, you see, as soon as I go downwards, oh, Linda must be there. Hello, Linda. Linda W. I missed that. So there it is. There it is. Oh, Sue likes it. So there's our little pouch. That one. And, oh, this one feels heavier. There's another one. Okay. So, yeah, just nice and easy. And also the fact that we can use just one piece of zip. So you've got, I mean, it's quite a long zip to go all the way around, but it gets you used to putting zip pulls on, doesn't it? And as I say, these ones are 9-inch squares that I started off with. And you can use, this one I've got zipped up. You could use 10-inch squares quite easily. And if you wanted to use 12-inch squares, you can have even bigger. Okay. Well, it's been a long day. We're doing the fabric sale in the middle of the, or not middle of the day, I was saying, not the middle of the afternoon. And now with that on my mind of covering that little thing, who knows? Who knows? But that is my little offering for today. And tomorrow, as you know, it will be the pumpkin coasters. And next week, just a little heads up for Tuesday in the Sew with Trisha group, get your denim jeans out because I have some little project. The sewing technique will be recycling, upcycling. The pockets inside, Sue. That was on the lining. If you remember, I put that folded strip on the top of the lining. Oh, fabric sale, you missed that too, Sue. So if you missed the fabric sale earlier, I did one at midday and we'll be doing that on a Thursday. Oh, thank you, Jane. The video is on this page, the So Totally Trisha page. And if there's anything you fancy, it's mainly Regency Somerset blues. So blues and beiges and a bit of goldy mustard. Lovely, really beautiful. And as I said, the goldy mustard ones would be ideal for pumpkins and pumpkin coasters. So have a look, drop me an email if there's anything you would like, because it isn't all sold out. And there's just a few Christmassy reds and a holly design at the very end, numbers 30 to 33. Okay, so yes, it's Martin's birthday on Saturday. And boy, have I been allowed to forget it. No. So we shall be going out tomorrow evening. It'll be my first night out in, oh my goodness. Yeah. Anyhow, I'm sure we will have a lovely time. And Martin will celebrate his birthday. I'll be as nice as I can to him. I won't make fun of him, but we'll have a good laugh. Anyhow, thank you so much for joining me tonight. It has been lovely. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Have a great weekend, and I hope you enjoy the coasters tomorrow. So take care, and bye for now.